My name is Raven Blackwood, and I'm about to serve my husband divorce papers. 20 years of marriage, and it all comes down to this moment. I stride through the glass doors of Damien's law firm, my heels clicking against the polished marble floor. The receptionist's eyes widen as I approach. Mrs. Blackwood, I didn't know you were coming in today. It's a surprise, I say, forcing a smile. Is Damien in his office? She nods, reaching for the phone. Should I let him know you're here? No need, I say, already moving past her desk. I'll see myself in. My heart pounds as I approach Damien's corner office. Through the glass walls, I can see him hunched over his desk, his salt and pepper hair catching the afternoon light. I take a deep breath and push open the door. Damien looks up, surprise flickering across his face. Raven, what are you doing here? I toss the manila envelope onto his desk. Happy anniversary, darling. He frowns, reaching for the envelope. What's this? Divorce papers, I say, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. I think it's time we stopped pretending, don't you? Damien's face pales as he scans the documents. Raven, wait. We can talk about this. I laugh, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Talk? Like we talked about your assistant? The one you've been screwing behind my back. He stands, holding out his hands. It's not what you think. I can explain. Save it, I snap. I've heard enough of your explanations to last a lifetime. As I turn to leave, Damien grabs my arm. What about Scarlett? Have you thought about what this will do to her? I yank my arm free, fury rising in my chest. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield. You lost that right when you decided to throw away our family. My mother was right about you, Damien hisses. You've always been looking for a way out. The mention of Evelyn, my nightmare of a mother-in-law, is the final straw. I spin around, jabbing a finger at Damien's chest. Your mother is a manipulative witch who's been trying to destroy our marriage from day one. And you? You're just her spineless puppet. I storm out of the office, ignoring the stares of Damien's colleagues. As the elevator doors close behind me, I finally let the tears fall. 20 years of memories flash through my mind. Our whirlwind romance, our courthouse wedding, the birth of our daughter. But it's time to face the truth. The man I married is gone, replaced by a stranger I barely recognize. And I'm done being the dutiful wife, silently enduring his betrayals. It's time for Raven Blackwood to spread her wings and fly. The day Evelyn moved in was the day our house stopped feeling like home. I watched, helpless, as Damien carried her designer luggage up the stairs, her perfectly manicured hand resting on his arm. Oh, Damien. Evelyn cooed, her voice syrupy sweet. I don't know what I'd do without you. Losing your father has been so hard. I bit my tongue, remembering the arguments Evelyn and her late husband used to have. Their relationship had been anything but loving. It's no trouble, mother, Damien replied, ever the dutiful son. We're happy to have you here. I caught his eye, raising an eyebrow. We hadn't discussed this arrangement, but I knew better than to argue in front of Evelyn. As weeks passed, Evelyn's presence became suffocating. She rearranged furniture, critiqued my cooking, and monopolized Damien's time. But it was her influence on Scarlett that worried me most. Grandma bought me these new shoes, Scarlett announced one afternoon, twirling in a pair of stilettos far too mature for her 16 years. Those aren't appropriate for school, I said firmly. Scarlett rolled her eyes.
God, Mom.
You're so boring. Grandma says I should express myself. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Scarlett's school. My stomach dropped as I answered. Mrs. Blackwood, we need you to come in. Scarlett's been caught shoplifting. The drive to the school was tense. Scarlett slouched in the passenger seat, arms crossed. Why, Scarlett? Asked, my voice cracking. You have everything you need. Why would you steal? She shrugged, avoiding my gaze. It was just for fun. Everyone does it. In the principal's office, Damien and Evelyn were already waiting. Evelyn rushed to embrace Scarlett, shooting me an accusatory glare. Oh, you poor thing, Evelyn cooed. I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding. The principal cleared his throat. I'm afraid not, Mrs. Blackwood. We have Scarlett on camera removing security tags and concealing merchandise. Damien pinched the bridge of his nose. What were you thinking, Scarlett? Before Scarlett could answer, Evelyn interjected. Well, can you blame her? With Raven always working, the poor girl's been neglected. She's crying out for attention. I felt the blood drain from my face. Excuse me? Damien held up a hand. Let's not do this here. We'll discuss this at home. As we left the office, I caught Evelyn's triumphant smirk. She'd successfully turned my moment of parental concern into an indictment of my mothering skills. I realized then that this was just the beginning. Evelyn wasn't content with merely moving into our home. She was determined to take over our lives. And unless I found a way to stop her, she just might succeed. The screeching of tires and shattering glass still echo in my ears as I lie in the hospital bed, my body a patchwork of bruises and bandages. The car accident left me battered, but alive. If only I could say the same for my marriage. Raven, darling, how are you feeling? Evelyn's saccharine voice grates on my nerves as she enters the room, Damien trailing behind her. I've been better, I mutter, wincing as I try to sit up. Damien approaches, his face a mask of concern. The doctor says you can come home tomorrow. We've set up the guest room downstairs for you. I nod, grateful for the consideration, but Evelyn's scoff catches my attention. Guest room? Nonsense. Raven will be fine upstairs. Won't you, dear? No need for all this fuss. I open my mouth to protest, but Damien cuts in. Mother's right. You'll recover faster if you stick to your routine. As they leave, I catch Evelyn's triumphant smirk. She's convinced Damien I'm exaggerating my injuries, and he's all too willing to believe her. Days pass, and I struggle to manage the stairs and household chores. Evelyn watches with barely concealed glee as I wince and stumble. One afternoon, while searching for my pain medication, I stumble upon a bank statement. My eyes widen as I see a series of large withdrawals from my personal savings account. Heart pounding, I confront Damien that evening. Why is money missing from my account? He doesn't meet my eyes. We needed it for some investments. I was going to tell you. We? Or you and your mother? I demand. Damien's face hardens. Don't start, Raven. Mother's been a huge help while you've been indisposed. The betrayal cuts deep. I realize I can no longer trust the man I married. That night, I make 2 calls, one to a lawyer and another to a private investigator. Over the next few weeks, I meticulously document every slight, every manipulative comment from Evelyn, every dismissive gesture from Damien. I photograph bank statements and record conversations. My body may be healing, but my resolve is hardening into steel. One evening, as I overhear Evelyn and Damien discussing plans to send Scarlett to a boarding school, without consulting me, I know it's time to act. I may have been knocked down, but I'm far from out. Evelyn and Damien have no idea what's coming. They think they've won, that they've broken me. But they're about to learn that this injured bird still has talons, and I'm ready to fight for everything they've tried to take from me. The tension in our house had reached a breaking point. Damien's new promotion, orchestrated by Evelyn's relentless pushing, meant he was rarely home. When he was, the arguments were endless. Another business trip? I asked, watching him pack. That's the 3rd this month. Damien sighed, not meeting my eyes. It's part of the job, Raven. You know that. I did know. I also knew about the lipstick-stained collar I'd found in his laundry, the late-night phone calls he took in hushed tones. My suspicions were confirmed when my private investigator delivered a manila envelope. Inside were photos of Damien and his young assistant, locked in an intimate embrace outside a hotel. That night, I confronted him. How long has it been going on, Damien? He paled, stammering denials until I slapped the photos on the table. His face crumpled. Raven, I'm sorry. It didn't mean anything. Before I could respond, Scarlett burst into the room, Evelyn close behind. What's going on? Scarlett demanded. Evelyn's eyes gleamed as she took in the scene. Oh my, trouble in paradise. I turned to Scarlett, my voice breaking. Your father's been having an affair. Scarlett's face contorted with anger, but not at Damien. God, Mom. Why are you always trying to ruin everything? You're so paranoid and controlling. Her words cut deep, but Evelyn's smug smile hurt even more. Now. Evelyn cooed, wrapping an arm around Scarlett. Your mother's just upset. We all say things we don't mean when we're emotional. I'd had enough. Get out. I snarled at Evelyn. Both of you, get out of my house. Damien stepped between us. Raven, calm down. You're overreacting. Overreacting. I laughed bitterly. You've been cheating on me, stealing from me, and letting your mother poison our daughter against me. I'm done. I stormed upstairs, returning moments later with a stack of papers. I thrust them at Damien. Divorce papers, I said coldly, and a restraining order against Evelyn. I want her out of this house by morning. Evelyn's face twisted with rage. You ungrateful little dash. Save it, I snapped. I've put up with your manipulation for 20 years. No more. Scarlett looked between us, tears in her eyes.
Mom, please.
Don't do this. But I was beyond listening. Years of pent-up anger and hurt poured out as I faced my family. No, the strangers who had taken their place. It's done, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. I suggest you all start packing. As I walked out of the room, head held high, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in years, I felt like I might just win the war. The tiny apartment felt more like a prison cell than a home. I sat on the threadbare couch, surrounded by boxes of what little I'd managed to take from my former life. The divorce had left me financially drained, and Damien's high-powered lawyers had ensured I got the short end of every stick. My phone buzzed, another text from Scarlett. Mom, please stop calling. I don't want to talk to you. I fought back tears, remembering the last time I'd seen my daughter. It was in the courtroom, her eyes cold as she testified against me. My mom's always been unstable, she'd said, Evelyn's hand on her shoulder. Dad and Grandma are the only ones who really take care of me. Those words had been the final nail in the coffin of my custody case. The judge's decision still rang in my ears. Primary custody is awarded to the father, Damien Blackwood. A knock at the door startled me from my thoughts. I opened it to find my lawyer, looking grim. Raven, we need to talk, she said, stepping inside. Damien's pushing for supervised visitation only. He's claiming you're a danger to Scarlett. I sank back onto the couch, my head spinning. How can he do this? I'm her mother.
My lawyer sighed.
His team is painting you as unstable, citing your erratic behavior during the divorce. And Evelyn's testimony about your violent outbursts isn't helping. I clenched my fists, fury rising. That woman has been poisoning my family against me for years. And now she's taken my daughter. I know it's hard, but we need to stay focused, my lawyer said. We can appeal the custody decision, but it's going to be an uphill battle. As she left, I felt the walls closing in. I'd lost everything, my home, my family, my dignity. Damien and Evelyn had won. But as I looked at the few photos I had left to Scarlett, something inside me hardened. This wasn't over. I'd claw my way back up, no matter how long it took. I'd prove them all wrong and win back my daughter's trust. I picked up my phone, dialing a number I'd sworn I'd never use. Hello, a gruff voice answered. Uncle Jack? It's Raven. I need your help. My estranged uncle, a retired detective with a questionable past, was my last resort. If anyone could help me dig up dirt on Damien and Evelyn, it was him. As I hung up, a grim smile played on my lips. They thought they'd broken me, but they had no idea what I was capable of. The real fight was just beginning, and this time, I wouldn't play by their rules. 5 years had passed since I'd last seen Scarlett. 5 long, painful years of unanswered calls and return letters. So when my phone lit up with her name, I nearly dropped it in shock. Mom, her voice was hesitant, older. Can we meet? We agreed on a quiet cafe, neutral ground. As I waited, my heart raced. Would she still hate me? Was this another of Evelyn's tricks? Then I saw her. Gone was the rebellious teenager. In her place stood a young woman, her eyes carrying a weariness beyond her years. Hi, Mom, Scarlett said, sliding into the seat across from me. Scarlett. I breathed, fighting the urge to reach out and touch her. I've missed you so much. She nodded, her eyes welling with tears. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything. I was wrong, and I've regretted it every day. As Scarlett spoke, the years of pain and anger melted away. She told me about college, her struggles with anxiety, and the slow realization that Evelyn and Damien had manipulated her. But that's not why I'm here, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Dad's in trouble. Big trouble. My blood ran cold. What kind of trouble? The IRS is investigating his company for tax fraud. I've seen things, Mom. Documents, offshore accounts. It's bad. I leaned back, my mind reeling. Does your father know you're telling me this? Scarlett shook her head. No one knows. But I can't keep quiet anymore. Will you help me gather evidence? For a moment, I hesitated. This was my chance for revenge, served on a silver platter. But looking at Scarlett's pleading eyes, I knew this was about more than getting even. Of course I'll help, I said, squeezing her hand. We'll figure this out together. Over the next few weeks, Scarlett and I worked tirelessly, piecing together the extent of Damien's crimes. What we uncovered was staggering. Not just tax fraud, but embezzlement on a massive scale. One night, as we pored over financial records, Scarlett gasped. Mom, look at this. She pointed to a series of transfers, all to an account in the Cayman Islands. The beneficiary? Evelyn Blackwood. Your father's been funneling company money to your grandmother, I said, the pieces falling into place. That's how she's maintained her lavish lifestyle all these years. Scarlett's face hardened with resolve. We have to stop them, Mom. They can't keep getting away with this. I nodded, a plan already forming in my mind. They won't, sweetheart. Not anymore. As we gathered our evidence, I felt a surge of determination. Damien and Evelyn had taken everything from me once. Now it was time for justice to be served. The anonymous tip to the IRS and media outlets felt like lighting a fuse on a powder keg. Scarlett and I watched from afar as chaos erupted around Damien and Evelyn. News vans swarmed their gated community, reporters clamoring for a statement. Damien's company's stock plummeted as rumors of fraud spread like wildfire. Through it all, Scarlett and I maintained our silence, our secret safe behind layers of encryption and burner phones. Are you sure about this, Mom? Scarlett asked, her voice trembling as we watched the drama unfold on TV. I squeezed her hand. It's too late to turn back now, sweetheart. They made their choices. Now they face the consequences. The raid came at dawn. We watched from a car down the street as federal agents swarmed the house, emerging with boxes of documents and computers. Damien, disheveled and pale, was led out in handcuffs, cameras flashing in his face. Evelyn appeared moments later, shrieking and clawing at the agents. Don't you know who I am? You can't do this to us. As they were driven away, I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was justice, but it was also the final nail in the coffin of the family we once were. Over the next few weeks, the full extent of Damien's crimes came to light. The company collapsed, leaving hundreds jobless. Former friends and associates scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. Scarlett and I watched it all unfold from the safety of my small apartment. She cried when Damien was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. I held her, my own emotions a tangled mess of vindication and regret. What about Grandma? Scarlett asked one evening as we sorted through the aftermath. I sighed, showing her the latest news article. Evelyn, stripped of her ill-gotten wealth, had been forced to sell her designer clothes and move into a rundown apartment on the outskirts of town. She made her bed, I said, my voice hard. Now she has to lie in it. As the dust settled, Scarlett and I began to rebuild our lives. The weight of secrets and lies lifted, replaced by a tentative hope for the future. One night, as we shared a quiet dinner, Scarlett looked at me with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything. How can you ever forgive me? I reached across the table, taking her hand.
Oh, sweetheart.
I forgave you long ago. The question is, can you forgive me for what I've done? She squeezed my hand, a small smile breaking through her tears. There's nothing to forgive. You did what you had to do. We both did. As we embraced, I realized that out of the ashes of our broken family, something new and stronger was emerging. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I felt hope for the future. 5 years after Damien's arrest, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my blazer. The sign outside my new office read Phoenix Rising Consulting, helping women rebuild their lives. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed with a text from Scarlett. Good luck on your first day, Mom. So proud of you. I smiled, remembering how far we'd come. Scarlett had graduated college and was pursuing her dream of becoming a social worker, inspired by our journey together. As I locked up that evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. Raven. The voice was familiar, yet changed.
Damien.
My heart raced. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter, he said, his voice weary. I wanted to apologize. For everything. I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. It's too late for that, Damien. I know, he sighed. I just hope someday you can forgive me. I ended the call without responding. Back home, I found a letter waiting. Damien's handwriting. I tossed it unopened into the trash. Weeks later, Scarlett and I met for our weekly dinner. She seemed distracted. What's wrong, sweetheart? I asked. She hesitated. I saw Grandma Evelyn today, at the grocery store. My breath caught. How is she? A mess, Scarlett said softly. Working as a cashier, living in a tiny apartment. She didn't even recognize me at first. I nodded, unsure how to feel. And how are you doing with all of this? Scarlett's eyes welled up. I'm angry, Mom. At her, at Dad, at myself for believing their lies for so long. But mostly, I'm grateful for you. For your strength, your forgiveness. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. We've both come a long way, haven't we? As we finished our meal, I reflected on the tumultuous journey that had brought us here. The pain, the betrayal, the hard-won justice. But looking at Scarlett, seeing the strong, compassionate woman she'd become, I knew it had all been worth it. Later that night, I stood on my balcony, gazing at the city lights. I thought about Damien, locked away in prison, and Evelyn, facing the consequences of her actions. I felt no joy in their downfall, only a quiet sense of closure. My phone buzzed with another text from Scarlett. Love you, Mom. Thanks for never giving up on us. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. The path to healing wasn't easy, but we were on it together. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. As I looked to the future, I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't in destroying those who had hurt us. It was in rising above the pain, in rebuilding our lives stronger than before. Like a phoenix from the ashes, we had emerged, transformed. And that, I knew, was the sweetest victory of all.